Hello and welcome to the show. I'm John Bachman.
And I'm Bianca Della Garza. So great to have you with us today. And we begin with another escalation in that nuclear war rhetoric. But this time today, it is coming from our president, Joe Biden.
That's right. We see President Biden at a crowd, talking to a crowd at a Democratic fundraiser last night in New York. He said that Vladimir Putin's nuclear threats are real. He also said the risk of Armageddon, his word, is at its highest point since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Of course, the concern is Putin's mounting losses on the battlefield and the sense that Russia's president is now backed into a corner and his only option could be using a tactical nuclear weapon on those advancing Ukrainian forces. Now, President Volodymyr Zelensky is also speaking out. He's been calling on NATO to have a stronger response.
Remarks by the president in New York last night are the topic of conversation. They're raising eyebrows around the world. The commander-in-chief making clear how seriously he takes the nuclear saber-rattling by Vladimir Putin. Let's welcome in now Newsmax Chief White House Correspondent James Rosen. He has the details from the North Lawn. Hey, James.
John and Bianca, good afternoon to you. Students of the presidency weighed in immediately, pointing out how unusual it is for a sitting American president to speak so bluntly about the prospect of nuclear war and to portray it as a real-time threat. Mr. Biden's comments came at a fundraiser for the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee held last night at the Manhattan home of James Murdoch, son of the News Corp founder Rupert Murdoch. In assessing the actions and intentions of President Putin, President Biden described his adversary as, quote, a guy I know fairly well. We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis, the president told the Democratic audience. First time since the Cuban Missile Crisis we have a direct threat of the use of a nuclear weapon if, in fact, things continue down the path they are going. He's not joking, the president continued, referring to President Putin, when he talks about potential use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological or chemical weapons, because his military is, you might say, significantly underperforming. I don't think there's any such thing as the ability to easily use a tactical nuclear weapon, the president added, and not end up with Armageddon. So the president concluded, I'm trying to figure out what is Putin's off-ramp. Where does he find a way out? Where does he find himself in a position that he does not only lose face, but lose significant power within Russia, end quote. Now, that last comment from President Biden raises an equally interesting dimension of the Russia-Ukraine war, where Western officials have said ever since the invasion began that President Putin and other architects of the war must be held accountable. And indeed, President Biden himself has branded President Putin a war criminal. The remarks from the president at that fundraiser last night now suggest that he sees the end to the Russia-Ukraine war hinging on reassurances that the West can provide to Mr. Putin now that he will save face and preserve his power inside Russia.